You want to TV on?
Oh, I haven't plugged it in. I don't think there's anyone who's done it either.
Okay, listen.
Get ready when you are.
Right, welcome everyone along to meeting this month. Call for apologies.
Second now.
Now, and Vicky McCord. Can I someone move those apologies, please?
I'll do that.
Stuart Duncan, seconder. Harris, all those in favour? Aye, against? Very thank you. Public forum. None. I'd just like everyone attending, please, to stand for the death of Maniatoto local, long-time local, Jill Bell. Thank you very much. Can I have someone please move the confirmation previous meeting with the previous and correct record? Yeah. Karis, seconder.
Yeah.
Stuart Duncan, all those in favour? Aye, against? Aye.
Yeah, well, here you wouldn't have a meeting.
Oh, that's right. So I just want to make sure.
Thank you. Remind members that they feel they have a conflict of interest to please speak up. Right, Wayne. Standing orders.
Yep. Afternoon, everyone. So this is an amendment to well, essentially continue members going to quorum if they join on Teams. So the legislation is about to end on October the 1st that allows that, but there's been a supplementary bit added to the Local Government Act, which says if it's in your standing orders, you can make it a permanent arrangement. So we're just heading around now to all the community boards and working council to make a few changes. I think there's 3 or 4 changes that I've indicated that need to be made, and then we can make it a permanent thing. Happy to take any questions.
So members can join remotely at the moment.
Yep.
But it's going to stop.
No, it's just becoming a quorum.
Yeah.
So, so if you were to have like when we had the online meeting the other week, everyone counted as quorum because they were there. But what's going to stop on October the 1st is that anyone that came in online wouldn't be counted towards the quorum. But if we put it into our standing orders, we can make that a permanent arrangement.
Yeah, they can be counted as quorum.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Wayne? We need a move and a second for that, Wayne?
Yeah.
So someone move that, please. I'll do that. Stuart Duncan, seconder.
Yeah.
Harris, all those in favour? Aye, against? Very thank you. Donna, how are you today?
Yeah, before I start my report, I'd just like to introduce Paul, who is our new Chief Financial Officer, replacing Susan.
How are you? All right? Whereabouts of the country did you come from?
Originally Dunedin, and I did 10 years at Otago Power, so Ranfurly had our hydro scheme.
Yep.
So I did a bit of time up here, backwards and forwards between Balclutha and Ranfurly. Then did with the Max Bragg did reforms in 2000 when OPL was sold or split off. I did a stint in Aussie, then came back and did work in South Canterbury. So I've been in South Islander for pretty much all my life.
Oh, that's all right then.
I knew that's what you wanted to hear.
Right. I hope you enjoy your time. But have you'll meet everyone as we go around. Yeah, right, Donna.
Thank you. So take the paper as being read. This is an interim financial report for the 30th of June 2024. This does mean that we are still working through final adjustments in our end of year process, but there shouldn't be any major changes from the numbers we see before you today. So for the 30th of June, we have a favourable operating variance of 102,000 against your revised budget. And the overall there is an operating surplus of $150,000. Revenue has a favourable variance of $135,000, and the variances continue to be driven by internal interest revenue on surplus reserve balances, other capital contributions like those received from the Pierce Trust, and also a favourable variance in user fees and other income. Expenditure has an unfavourable variance of $33,000. The contract has a favourable variance of $58,000, and this is offsetting the unfavourable or the overspend in rates expense, internal interest expense, staff costs, depreciation, and cost allocation. So the staff variance is due to the property general overspend, which is being managed through cost allocations, where staff time is charged out to other departments, so it's sort of funded across all cost centres. The overall variance of the cost allocations is due to an increase in the council's internal overhead charges, and this is being mainly driven from insurance costs and also information services costs. Capital expenditure has finished with a favourable variance of $85,000, with only 48% of the capital expenditure budget being spent to date. So as mentioned in the last report, property has a few projects which have been delayed, with the Pioneer Store earthquake strengthening being reassessed in the upcoming long-term plan, and community halls and the Ranfurly Arts Centre project being carried forward into the 24-25 financial year. So we are currently starting on a project to do our carry forward project from the unspent budget, and we'll just be making sure that these will be completed or started within the 24-25 financial year, or whether we need to reprogram them into the long-term plan for your reassessment.
I'm happy, Stu. Thank you very much. Okay, someone move that report be accepted. Yeah, just going down, second it. Harris, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried, thank you. Thank you, Donna.
I was hoping you'd ask some questions because I was trying to write my report. But anyway, I've done it. Great to be here on a day when another Central Otago and Old Shields has won a medal in the Olympics. And as we were saying earlier, I've asked everyone I can think of, old and young, whether we've ever won an Olympic medal before in Central Otago, and nobody can think of one. So that's two in less than a week. Absolutely phenomenal. I too note the passing of Gerald Dell. I think Gerald was a top bloke. He had a life very well lived, and it's one of those things when you go to someone's funeral that you've only known Gerald since I became mayor, and you hear all the backstories, and yeah, it was really quite moving. Mayor's Task Force for Jobs is going from strength to strength around the district. Just to remind members or any public viewing that this is aimed at 16 to 24-year-olds, not an employment, education or training, or kids who are at school and really aren't at school, you know what I mean, who need a hand into the workplace. Look, let me know. There's been fantastic results around the whole district. Maniapoto probably a bit light on it, but Craig's always willing to coordinate. Craig Gilchrist always willing to come out here and talk to any young people needing help getting onto that labour ladder, or employers who may have a job available looking for somebody to fill it, particularly one where, it's not just a matter of going, right, I'll put you there, good, away you go. There's a whole lot of pastoral support to keep those kids in there and really give them a step up in life. Got a couple of, I got a letter today, to all the mayors, from the Minister of Local Government, which outlined further details on the government's local water done well plan, which I'd have to say at first glance looks quite promising. Haven't had a chance, and obviously haven't been through it with staff, but my first read of it and the accompanying documents gives me some hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There's increased ability to raise debt, which, some will say that offering more debt in this situation is like offering a glass of water to a drowning man, but I don't necessarily agree with that. If we can access more debt, we can spread the pain over a longer period of time, and that's crucial. There's models there for running it, which I think as a council, we're going to need to look at quite closely because there's some really interesting options. Important for the rural communities, there's going to be a reduction on the regulations for suppliers of under 25 units. So at the moment, you'll recall if you're a house and you've got a farmer's college next to it and you're running off the same rain tank or a water scan, same regulations as anyone else, which I always thought was madness. So they've now done, you can basically have 25 houses on a scheme and the regulations aren't going to be as high. I'm not sure what they'll be, but they're definitely looking at it going, well, this is a minimal thing. So I think that's absolutely the right move, and I've always supported that. So there's quite a bit in there. Well, there's actually a hell of a lot in there, but I've got to say, from where we were last week or before this announcement, not really knowing what we've got now, I'm feeling I might sleep a bit better tonight because we were just in a no-win situation. So good to see that. And of course, we've got our meeting on distributisation tonight in the Maniatoto, and hopefully some people will come along. We did, when we've talked about this up to now, we've sort of said, hey, this is an all or nothing scenario. We're either going to distributise everything or we're not. When it came to council last week, and partially as a consequence of the court case that came out of Wellington that reminded me as much as anything that we need to look at all approaches. There has another option's been put in. The reason being that with full distributisation, which is still there as an option, Teviot Valley ratepayers were facing a $233 a year increase. Now, they did have a $700 a year decrease when Three Waters was distributised, and they're also subsidised in their roading. So it's, there's two sides to that, and we'll have to work it out on the 25th of September, which way that goes after we've heard from the public. But another option is, the reason that they're so disparate is that they don't own, council doesn't own the swimming pool down there. In fact, there's two of them that the Teviot Valley Community Board subsidise, both at Roxburgh and Millers Flat. But we don't own them, we don't operate them, we don't depreciate them or anything like that. If complete distributisation happens, the people of the Teviot will wind up subsidising the pools in Alexandra, Cromwell and Ranfurly, whilst still having to feed their own pools on their own, essentially, because we don't own it. So an option has been put in where essentially the Teviot pools will be taken out of the equation. So they'll still look after their own pools and they won't be subsidising the other ones. The effect of that on the Maniatoto is if we had full distributisation, there would be a decrease, an anticipated decrease of $110 a year. If we do that can't remember the word for it, but trick with the pools in Roxburgh, that'll change to 93. So the impact on the Maniatoto was pretty minimal. But look, if there's any questions on any of that, Three Waters, Task Force for Jobs, or indeed the distributisation, now's a good time to fire away because the meeting is still young.
So the pool.
Yep.
Down they've got two pools they own. So why don't the council take the pools over, or is it just...
Well, firstly, the people who have the pools don't want us to. Well, we've talked to the Roxburgh pool people, we haven't talked to the Millers Flat pool people. And Millers Flat, I think, would be a little bit different. It would be a bit like the Oakwood pool in my mind. It's a little small town pool, but the Roxburgh pool, we had initially got the impression that if we took on the Roxburgh pool, then everything would even out, and so tickety boo. Well, firstly, Peter and I went and talked with the committee, and they said, look, we see your position, but we've just built a pool, kind of like, and that's fair and that's fine. The other thing is, though, and it was a moment of clarity that somebody gave me, because I had been looking at it the wrong way. At the moment, the Teviot Valley ratepayers are not funding fully any pools. Whether they fully fund 3 pools, being Ranfurly, Alex and Cromwell, or 4, by throwing Roxburgh to the mix, their rates are still going to go up. And in fact, if council did take on the Roxburgh pool, it would go up by even more. So I think it was about $280 a year. It would go up if their pool came into it as well. So it's, yeah. And I will tonight when I'm talking caveat the Maniatoto numbers, because really where it affects the Maniatoto is you've got 5 walls, I think, on the LTP at the moment that were $3.5 million to get earthquake strength than 4 years ago. So I'll be saying 5 million because I reckon that'd be about right. If everything's distributised, the whole district will pay that cost, not just the Maniatoto ward. Hence why there's such a massive reduction of $110 a year. However, are you going to, if we don't distributise, is the board going to fix all of those halls to earthquake standard? Don't know. But probably more importantly, the government, I'm wearing the right colour today for the way I'm talking. the government has a law in front of them which says, hey, if you've got a hall that's being used or a building that's being used infrequently, I don't know what the numbers are, but let's say, half a dozen times a year, whatever, instead of earthquake strengthening, you can put a big sign on the door that says, mate, if there's an earthquake, it's probably going to fall on you. It's up to you whether you go in or not, which I think is pretty plainly sensible. So we can only deal with what we've got at the moment. But if say for instance, they brought that in and that changed everything, your YPATA and the other halls that are infrequently used, we don't have to earthquake strengthen them, and that's an if, then those numbers will change because you do have the Maniatota will be subsidising the Cromwell Town Hall, which is a memorial hall, which is a big drain. I think I don't know whether you'd still be in the negatives or not, but I don't think the difference would necessarily be huge. For instance, Vincent's going up by about $50 a year because they don't have that. They're going up $50 a year to help pay for your halls getting fixed as well. So that's quite a big unknown in it, but we can only work with what we've got. Water everywhere.
I heard that on the radio this morning. Thought it was quite an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Was about 500%, 500 times the rate.
500 times.
The debt level.
And I couldn't understand whether that was the water CCO's revenue or the council's revenue. That's not clear. I'm picking it's the council's revenue, the way they were talking.
And the part then being, and we look at the absolute mess that looks like the regional council painting themselves into a corner with, what happens with water makes a massive effect on us, whether the plan, well, it could majorly affect the outcome of Central Otago future looking for both of these things.
Yeah, I am aware of another letter that went out to regional chairs today that found its way to me, which says that Te Taumata Arawai will be bringing in a national standard for wastewater discharge, and that national standard will be both the minimum and the maximum. So what I read from that is
you can do it as long as you don't breach the maximum.
Well, no, it's just going to be that is it. So, and again, I haven't got all the details, I only got it this morning, but it does look as though that will mean that the Otago Regional Council or the Waikato Regional Council or whatever can't set a level. They simply enforce the level that is set nationwide, which makes the Regional Land and Water Plan that's due out in October a really interesting document because it's got its own level in. Anyone in staff got comment on that? Have you had a chance to look over it, Louise?
No.
No. So look, I don't know. It's not in our lane, but the inference that I'm getting is that there will still be the ability to discharge to water where appropriate. So I think there's going to be the size of the discharge, the quality of the discharge, and the size of the receiving water body all going to be factors.
On each individual plant or the district across the district?
Each individual plant.
As in each house out in the country or?
Oh, no, I think we're
The
talking
water plants.
wastewater treatment plant.
But otherwise, like to the district, not districtising, but Rainfield's got a really good luxury to can discharge land.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and same with Naseby. So if you can take that across the region, it's a real issue. And if you can, if it suits with it, yeah. And I guess it makes it hard for these discussions of districtisation because a lot of these things, well, water's already been done, roading's already been done. But the water space is going to be really interesting.
Well, the water space still remains relevant. This is what I've got to try to think through to tonight, because one of the major reasons that we're doing this, or considering doing it, I should say, is that the assets that we have available to help meet our costs are essentially land, and our costs are in the three water space primarily. Now, this is going to help with those costs, but it sure as hell isn't going to make them go away. It might have made the hill a bit lower, but it's still, to me, if I've got a pensioner in Cromwell or in Ranfurly or wherever, and they have put in front of them in a future long-term planning or a consultation that says, hey, if we sell $10 million worth of land, and look, we won't do it as simply as this, if we develop and sell or whatever, $10 million worth of land, and that's going to mean your rate bill's $50 a year, what do you reckon? I reckon they're going to go, yeah. And whether or not that's how much land has to be applied to that, that's all for future council to decide. This is just opening the conversation to whether or not we're going to do that. And we're still going to need help, because even if we can borrow up to 500%, you still got to pay it back. You still got to pay the interest. So if you can still pull that back through selling some asset, certainly not all of it, but some of it, I think we still need to be.
So with the caveat and the pools, my simple brain tells me, why don't we increase the level of service and other asset types within the community to average it out, whether it be parks or community services or roading, rather than just designate it to a specific on a pool, because effectively it's just the rate the old resident or the young resident, whoever you want to be, has just got a rate figure on their rates bill. They're not really worried about how it's made up.
Mm.
Is that, can we say, like, roading goes up 3%, parks and rec go up 3%, and whatever other services which your community board might wish to have can go up 1.5%, that equals $300.
The problem with that is what we're trying to do is level everything across the district. So we'd be actually treating one ward differently to everyone else if we did that. I think it would defeat the fundamental, one of the fundamental purposes is to say, well, here's, you know, if you are concerned, because I think it's two simple arguments. This is a debate we have on the 25th of September, but there is the argument of saying, okay, Teviot got the benefit of the three waters. So swings and roundabouts, you're not going to get the benefit of this. But it could be argued that Port Teddy Hua didn't get the benefits of the three waters because they didn't have three waters.
No.
Roxburgh doesn't have a pool that we manage. So is it apples with apples? I don't know. This is all for the 25th, but it's going to be really tricky. Oh, I don't know what I reckon.
There's been lots of discussions, and as councillors, we've had ourselves, and we're in a lunch meeting tomorrow, someone to talk about exactly the issue, but it is that districtisation of the small communities can help. And the argument for the pool was, well, if you built your own pool and want to fund it, really it's a tough gig, but the rates have gone up a lot without this chucked on top.
Yeah, the counter argument is a fear that the people of the Teviot wind up subsidising the pool and Alex Cromwell and the Manutato, particularly when the Teviots are wars, for want of a better word, ward. Don't we? We'll have this.
So
We'll have this
he's
debate on-
saying that the chairman of the Cromwell Committee will say they're the wealthiest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you think that land in Cromwell is Cromwell's land, then they absolutely are. If you think it's district land, then the argument becomes new.
The wife of the district land.
You want to predetermine yourself, Stu. Let's have this conversation on the 25th.
Thank you, Tim. So getting back to that, you're talking about 25 water users.
Yeah.
In a scheme like the two here. Be like less than 25.
Sweet.
So what don't they have to do?
The regulations are going to be less for them, and I haven't yet picked up on what that is. There is just a raft of paperwork that's come out of it, but definitely they're not going to be at the higher level of scrutiny that the councils are in which they are at the moment. So I think it's fantastic news. A, it's practical, and B, sooner or later those schemes are going to go to hell with this. I'm not taking this risk, council, your problem. That now is much less likely to happen.
How many are on to, 17?
40.
Oh, well, it makes no difference to them then. But Cambrians, for instance, would now be out. I don't actually have a list. That's the only one I can think of the top of my head. But
That's been a big tricky point, isn't it? Like, you know, you get a house in a woolshed and a couple of houses down the road and the neighbour off the intake.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're liable, and the old system to now allow people to breed buildings.
I'd always sort of been advocating for 50, and that might have been because I didn't recesses in my mind aware that I'll tell you it was 47. But I can't remember.
Yeah, 3 or 40 something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, a lot of that growth has come along since BA and those guys put the water scheme in. It's after the development was never that number, it was never meant to be the number it is now. So it's actually progressed beyond, what's a roundabout way, if it is the growth that's happening, it needs to be regulated to some degree, because otherwise it could just be a.
Tom, here, I think they actually designed it for about 20.
Yeah, I was gonna say 17 to 20, because it's something like that. So I get reminded of just about daily, don't worry about that.
No, it's not your ward, but how many is it happens? But the time you come holiday and be a few.
Well, it comes out of the.
But it comes down that,
Comes
that
down.
hill there around into the big pond. There's a few on there now.
Yeah.
2 houses will be over 20.
So probably Cambrians is the only one I can think of that doesn't be.
Well, Danger's Pass was one.
Oh, yeah. There'll be a few of them. I'll have a wee look and see if I can find that out. I'll carry on with the rest of the meeting, which is finished.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Tim? You found it.
Fine, registered supplies and central cargo from the public, registered public.
Right, you want to move that report of yours, Tim?
I can't, because I'm not a member.
I'll move it.
Tim, no, Stu, move it, second it. Yes, all those in favour? Aye, against? Very good. Right, haven't done too much. I had a quick meeting with Patrick and EJazz one day up at, I took you on Gough Road about the bores. They're looking at drilling test bores for Ranfurly Water. You've got a bit of an update on that later on, Ed, or you want to?
I think the conversation like Patrick has said, he caught up with you and that's the latest, on that one.
Right,
Yeah.
more, they're doing some exploratory drilling there with the regional council drill theirs and looking at putting them into the game just as a top up in the summer. We've discussed another couple of options of places where they could go. So the main thing was to stay on council land, wasn't it? Right, so they didn't have to go on other people's land, drill bores and put pipes in. Plenty of people talking about rates. Some interesting discussions. Yeah. The service level of service that they get for their rates. That's just not easy. Some days talking to some people who are paying how much $900 extra a year, and they say they're still just getting the same service. Plenty of questions about districtisation. I don't think there's going to be that many at the meeting tonight. People I've talked to, and it's the same thing. What are we going to get out of it? And try and show them a couple of those graphs about the less money that we are paying compared to the other ones. Vincent, the only thing I got out of it when I was reading it, one thing, the question was they talked about Cromwell's assets and the districtisation, and do they call it endowment money they have up there?
Yeah, so there's two things. There's three types of land. One is reserved land, like finance. Forget about it.
Yep.
Not that. The other's freehold. So I can't think of examples here, but for instance, Gear Avenue that's been developed in Cromwell, that's freehold. So that's property council land. Then the third sort is endowment. So I believe your farms are endowment land. So they will have a document with them that says this land is to be used for purposes to benefit the people of the borough of Ranfurly or something like that, back from the borough council days. That land must be applied to things within the former borough. Yep. So if that were the case, our legal advice tells us that we could, for instance, take, and I'll use the Cromwell example, because the farms get complicated because they're tied up. You could take you technically could take a piece of Cromwell endowment land and apply that to a Cromwell drinking water plant, because it's still in Cromwell, but you couldn't take that land and apply it to a Ranfurly drinking water. But in applying it to the Cromwell drinking water plant, everyone in the district will benefit because that's the district cost. At the moment, any sales of land, any proceeds of sale of land can only be applied at a ward level, which means we can't apply it to the things that are coming up.
So if districtisation goes ahead after the date that it comes in, all the money like that's earned off this, say, the Cromwell land and the Manitoba land, does it become council land or council money?
It's all council land.
Sorry, but the money that instead of going into a pot in Cromwell, does it go into the council pot? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, technically yes, but it actually has to go through a whole redraft of the rating and financing policy, which will happen in the LTP next year. So this is basically saying, are you okay with us going ahead and doing that work? So it won't happen straight away. Same as when we districtised Three Waters in 2015. We did that in 2015, but nothing really happened until 2016 because it's local government. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, well, the question I've had from most people is about like the two farms we've got that at least the money's paying off the hospital. So they say, can that land be sold? Because that's the big question.
Look,
the money that is earned off it after districtisation, does it stay going
I would
to hospitals? Same with Cromwell.
Yeah,
Does the Cromwell money have to be spent in Cromwell?
No, the Cromwell money doesn't have to be spent in Cromwell. Technically, the Ranfurly money doesn't have to be spent here, but I would see it. I would think it would be really difficult for the council to unravel that. But I think once, again, it is endowment land, isn't it?
I don't know if it is.
Just a point of clarification that the endowment land is all freehold land. It is just the way in which it came to council and the use the way it can be used, and that is down to what the purpose of the endowment is. And there's a range of different ones. Some are for municipal purposes or for borough funds or whatever. And when endowment land is going to be sold, there is a particular process that we have to go through and follow, and we must abide by the purpose of the endowment, which is kind of bottom line.
Yeah, but what I mean is after, if it become districtised, the money that is earned off the endowment land, does it go into the,
So if
into
it's
the big pot? Or
for
does
the
it-
purpose of the borough funds,
Yep.
then it would have to go into what was the borough,
Right,
or be used by that. And it's just a matter of unpicking the purpose of the endowment, understanding that, and then there'd be council decisions around it anyway, and board, but.
But I don't think
But
that land
giving
isn't down.
And look, I think whether it is or not, whether it is or not, it would, well, I think it would be even harder if it was endowment land, but I think it would be very difficult to unwind what's been done with that bit of land, but once that hospital loan's paid off, 25 or 20 years or whatever it'll be from now, I guess that's a conversation then. But
yeah, no, this, everyone's just, I've talked to about it, they've asked, will they sell the farmland?
Well, it'll be a decision ultimately of council.
Yeah, it will be count, as I said, it will be council.
At the time, the argument to that is that this community board, and this is a problem of districtisation, is whether they feel value in the community boards. A lot of people are feeling that we'll lose their say in the community board, but if this community board has done as good a job as it has in the last 10 years, in the next 10 years, go, well, our hospital's being paid off here, there may be another part, and reinvest that for community, not necessarily offsetting rates, but giving the community an asset which it bought into, then it'll be very hard for a council to go against the recommendation of the board when that's reinvesting council asset in a better place.
I think the question I'm getting from people is that when, if it becomes districtised, and the council want to sell the land, the farmland, wherever it is, nobody can stop it.
I think that's technically right.
That is technically, that's
Yeah,
right.
but I would be very surprised.
But
But
I'd say to be brave council that would do it.
Yeah,
But,
And-
that's the biggest.
and
question.
actually, I'm just,
How would that go against what it was in there for?
yeah, well, that's.
But it's
if
endowment
endowment
land.
land, it's gonna be.
I'm funny feeling that
Really,
farmland,
really
not.
Dimmerburn's not, it's owned by.
There's
the
one
government,
bit of
run by
endowment land we've got from
council.
Naseby.
I think
Endowment land, Naseby Borough.
it would be extraordinarily unlikely, but I can't say it would be impossible. And I think that actually, Stu, you just reminded me, I did want to say this, that it does, one of the potential, sorry if I may.
Yeah, keep going.
One of the potential downsides of this is if our communities go, oh, there's no bloody point being on community board, they're not doing anything, which is 100% wrong. And I know as mayor, I've tried really hard for 8 years to get around as much as I can, but I still don't know the people in this community like you guys do.
Yeah.
And I never will. You know, it's impossible. So if we don't have at the council table, the boards feeding up and telling us what's what, we're going to be a much weaker district. So the boards are still crucially important if districtisation happens. It's just their functions are going to change a bit. And I still think when it comes down to it, the boards are going to have not a determinative voice, but they're going to have an incredibly loud voice. What happens in the future? You know, hey, we're going to sell some land in Cromwell. What do we think we should do with it? The first people we'll be talking to is the Cromwell community. And the same out here and listening to. Can't guarantee what future councils will do, but the boards are just hugely important. We couldn't do our jobs without them. So.
Thank you. I had a wander around where they're doing the wastewater last week. It's guys down there. They're getting on right. It's just about finished from the looks of it. So 4.5 metres deep at the end. Did you go? Have you been for a look? That's pretty deep. No, they're getting on quite well. I presume it's all coming in within budget or nothing major.
We can get them to have a report back on that project, could be quite valuable, I think. Feedback.
I went out to the Sticks Bridge for a look out that way, so I kept on going. Done a lot of work. Fair bit of damage done by the machine that hit it. So hopefully it's final build. Is the final build, you know? Something to do.
Who's paying the final bill? What's the question I've been asked?
You happy to like that?
Yep.
Okay, so we did take the opportunity to do some more work on the bridge, at the time, and we are working with that party's insurers. And obviously the insurance portion will be the damage. But at the same time, we have taken the opportunity to do some additional work, additional safety improvements, some narrowing and stuff to try and prevent, machinery doing the same sort of damage again, but it was quite significant. But it gave it a bit of a birthday as well to prevent us needing to go back as soon to do some of the componentry on it as well. So, don't quite have the pricing back on the split, but yeah, we did have the opportunity to do a little bit more work.
And that's about all I've got. To move that report be accepted. Second, please. Harris, all those in favour? Right. Members' reports.
There you go.
Yes.
No, just the same, lot of complaints about the rates, but actually tell people it wouldn't matter where you were living, it was going to probably be the same anyway. They seem to fall in the line a bit. What's happening with the library door? Are they going to get fixed? Or anyone know anything about that?
Oh, Jansen.
The school are going through the process of claiming through their insurance.
Oh,
It's because of the value that's pushed it up. And you'll know how the schools can move issues. It will get fixed, but they're waiting on the insurance company.
You know, at the moment, right through one of the other classrooms, you know?
Yeah, no, there's an alternate route and going through the junior school and through the back door of the library.
No, apart from that, it's about all I've got, really.
you.
Well, here. I haven't been doing a lot either, to be fair. We're invited by Kate Wilson on to the executive, I guess, of Upper Torrey Y for a discussion about that and where they saw that. It was quite interesting not being involved in the water space or Te Aki Minitaro at a governance sort of level. A lot of work to go, but as a catchment group, it's a whole catchment we're in, and I just think the real focus is just trying to appease the regional council on water quality only. But when you've got a amount of deer that are running around in the high country, and you've got wallabies sitting in the back corner of Naseby, and you've got Broome and Gorson, a lot of the riverways, it's a bigger thing. So it was interesting to be a part of that. I think the lower Torrey group is not as advanced, or the mid Torrey, which is Strathtorrey, is not as advanced as these guys are. But when you hear the numbers of 24,000 geese they've been shooting, and you know the Broome and the gorse and the weeds in there, but you know that's one of the most things we're proud of. And I said, well, the pest group, because a lot of that stuff's been done. And when you go back to the early days, there's 1,000 tonne of 1080 carrots put on the Minnetonka a year, and some of those early days in the 80s. So they've come a long way. But my issue is where is good and where is better, you know. So, and then went to Te Aki Minnetonka meeting, it was quite good. And the ORC were there, and they got a bit of a roasting. But it's just that finding out, and I think when the money runs out, Te Aki Minnetonka, where that ends up. There's been a lot of good volunteer work done getting that work to the point it's at. So it'll be interesting to see where that money follows on. Workshop and risk and audit. Yeah, I don't know if I liked it or not. It just reinforced a lot of the slow moving stuff with the taking all that risk and stuff into it. But what I had not been able to drive is that you show how vulnerable you are in these rural communities if you haven't got support. You know, but for Lorraine to take 4 hours out to go away and have to drive to Alexandra to go there, I'm sort of, yeah, it was interesting, the concept risk and reward, but it probably tells you why the slow moving at council can get things done, because a lot of the time I think we're a bit more over cautious than we probably need to be, but that's just the nature of health and safety and the things we deal with. Russ from High Low regarding the water quality of the water to the mains there, and yeah, it's been a bit of an issue for these people, and it's a pretty cool place, the work they're doing, and there's a lot of growth and work on that. I just can't help thinking that if the water quality was in the front shop of Cromwell, would it be done straight away? But it's been really good, and yeah, under him and you know the good people and for that bridge. Same thing, been asked about who's paying for the bridge, when's it been done. I think it's just a topical thing at the moment, but the work is being done. And getting a fair bit of heat across the board, not just about rates, a bit of frustration in the community out there, and you do get it, whether it be and none of our elected members and the same with staff are immune from it, but it just seems to be amping up a wee bit, whether it's just winter and frustration. But the distributisation debate is going to be a big debate, and we'll talk more to Sally Fiden in the last week than I had ever, just to support, because you know, and I know this sounds probably weird, but as the rural and the further away from Cromwell Alexandra, we feel like we're left out. But you know, and it's hard being a single councillor. Where the other guys are talking a lot between themselves, but there's been a lot of chat, and I've been on 3 or 4 councils this week just talking about these things, so I don't feel we get enough time ourselves to just sit down and nut it all out. We've got time frames. If we're at workshops, we're workshopping, and then we're at council, we're counselling. So having that time to sit around and support each other is pretty tough. But I think this digitalisation is going to be a pretty big battle, and it's a big issue. But other than that, yeah, it's been tough that way, really. And there's a lot of work for, sometimes you feel that we're the volunteers making the decision when the other people have paid the salaries, and you've got to make the decision on their behalf. But we'll get there, but it's going to be a bit of a tough battle. And that was about it. Went through to Queenstown for my mother and father's 60th wedding anniversary the other day, and it was pretty cool to be thinking they're 85, 86 and 83, and their whole family's completely together, and you know, all that done there. And then we went to Airburn and saw what $100 million does when people got a dream and a concept. And you right on our back door, there's all this growth in the world, and we've got to make sure we keep up with it. And you look at the new hall and you think, well, that's just going to be a cool thing to have something like that, the central target, because if we're not, we're left behind. So it was quite cool to get away from here in the cold and the snow to see actually what growth looks like. You know, whether it be Ladies Mile or Frankton or whatever, it just doesn't stop. So, and that is really about me.
Thanks, Joe. Can I have someone move those members' reports, please? Mark Harris and seconder. Yeah. Stuart Duncan, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Very, thank you.
I've got that information on the 25 customers if you want.
Yep.
Quoting, the government is proposing to reduce the regulatory burden on small suppliers by excluding shared domestic suppliers serving 25 customers or fewer from regulation. This means these suppliers would no longer be required to register with Taumata Arowai or to meet other requirements in the Water Services Act 2021, such as preparing a drinking water safety plan. This proposal focuses on lower risk suppliers, including those that are supplying neighbouring domestic properties, such as the farmhouse. High risk community supplies, such as community halls and marae, will not be covered by this exclusion. So it looks like all bets are off for those small suppliers, which is, I think, good.
So in the sense of a Turuhua that's over 25, you say there, is that as a staff got an opportunity to say, this is a relatively new water supply and it has got these regulations made under a lesser scrutiny? Because that would be a way of the Turuhua to go, well, actually, yep, that's great, we're only there, but we're not far away, and does it meet the whole criteria? I mean,
Taumata Arowai are working pretty hard to find acceptable solutions for those smaller places.
yeah, well, that's what when the Prime Minister, they said there was a lot of work being put into Taumata Arowai to actually get a workable solution. And just on that, I did have lunch the other day at a function in Wanaka with the Prime Minister spoke, and we just been to take a regional roading meeting with Transit New Zealand, and bridges are obviously becoming a big issue. And I just had 2 minutes with them talking about bridge infrastructure. So we don't want to talk to individual councils. We want to talk to basically Timaru South. You've got a group of councils, you've got a group of issues, pull them all together and come and see us. And that was his advice. And when you take the water, you take the food, a bit like what Three Waters was going to do and Health is trying to do. They'll deal with issues, but bring it together from Timaru South or wherever you are. But yeah, it's quite interesting. He was very, very good speaking. That weekend you with him.
I was with him, and in his speech, he said I was the best looking mayor in New Zealand. I don't know what made him think.
Yeah, no, he didn't look poorly in the eye when I was talking about it. Didn't really look blind. He didn't have his glasses on that day either.
As long as you've been blind.
Status reports.
What have we got?
What we just started. That's on the previous resolution.
Yeah. Going to be well, but took the wrong button. Everyone happy with that report? Can someone move that it be accepted, please? Harris, seconder. Stuart Duncan, all those in favour? Against, carried, thank you. And our next meeting will be on the 19th of September. 2 p.m. start, I presume. Thank you. Thank you everyone for their attendance and clear meeting closed. Brilliant, go home.